Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Hindu analysis of 5th February 2024. Now, in today's analysis, let us look at the topics that we are going to cover. The first one is Uttarakhand government is bringing a bill to make a law on uniform civil code. In the morning, there has been some information about it. Most probably, the cabinet has also approved it and it is going to come into the legislature. So that's point number one. So we'll study about what exactly is UCC, what is the present bill talking about, in the past, what have been the arguments in favor or against UCC during the constitutional debates. We shall also look, just give me a second, I'll try to, just a second, I'll try to write bigger because a lot of you have commented to write a bit bigger. So I'll do that. So in the past, what all discussions have been done in the constitution on this, what is the recommendation of the law commission, what has been the observations of the Supreme Court, and what exactly is the government talking about this. That's your first topic. Paper 2, polity. Topic number 2 is Unending Woes on Bottom Trawling and the Arrests of Indian Fishermen by Sri Lanka. Again, this is a very old topic, has continuously kept on dominating the relations between India and Sri Lanka, the fishermen issue, and to some extent bottom trawling also is concerned with environment. But then we'll look into this. Third, a sunshine initiative on the government's rooftop solar panel plan. Now this is an editorial that came today, and if you remember, we have already covered it once in the last week, and today we shall again see how we can add certain things to the last days or the last week's discussion. Fourth, micro credentials, the next chapter in higher education. For paper 2, specifically the topic of education, this topic or this editorial which has been brought in the newspaper today is going to give us a lot of substantial points. It will make your answers very better or good in that sense. Fifth, Panchayats earn only 1% of their revenue through taxes. Now this is again a paper 2 topic, and this is full of data. I'm not asking you to remember all the data that is mentioned in today's newspaper, but I would definitely ask you people to remember some of these data, because if you remember some of these data, it would help you immensely when it comes to writing any answers on the PRIs. So if you are writing the answers on PRIs, it will be making your answers better. Because when we give data for any of the answers, invariably our answers become richer. So that's the fifth topic. Moving ahead, there are two topics on prelims bites. One is on the US strikes and another is on Ergosphere. Now US strikes, these are related to Yemen. In this we will see there is reference to a country which might come under geography through map. So we have taken this particular article, and the final article for the day is on Ergosphere. Now this article, only 1 or 2 lines you have to remember, but then can be very important for science. So these are the 7 articles for the day. Let us begin with the first one, that is Uniform Civil Code. Now you can see today a very big article under the text and context has come, which will help us in the paper 2, GS paper 2 polity. You can see on Uttarakhand's Uniform Civil Code. So clearly this is a draft which has come for the Uttarakhand assembly or the Uttarakhand people. On Uttarakhand's Uniform Civil Code, what was the debate surrounding the UCC in the Constituent Assembly? Can the state government implement a statewide UCC? Why has the Supreme Court not given a definite order regarding the implementation of UCC? There is a lot of questions that have been asked here. So you can see Constituent Assembly's views, arguments around the UCC, and what exactly is Supreme Court talking about this. So without wasting the time, I'm sorry. Let's begin with this. First of all, we should have a background of UCC with regards to Uttarakhand government. Now, let me tell you, the Uttarakhand government had formed a panel or committee. This committee was asked to give their recommendations with regards to UCC. Now we are in 2024. This committee was formed in June 2022 to examine how this UCC could be implemented. For that, it was brought. Now, it's a 5-membered committee which was headed by Justice, I would say retired Justice Desai. Now, nobody should ask you the names of all the 4 members, but then do remember the head of this particular committee. Now, this committee had been working for the last 1.5 years, and during its deliberations, it is mentioned it got some 2.33 lakh suggestions. Through various mediums, they would have got these suggestions, and they interacted with 10,000 people, held 72 meetings both in and out of the state. Now, Uttarakhand being a small state, the population is much lesser. If you look at 2.33 lakh suggestions, it equals around 10% of the families of the state. So this was the background in which this particular commission was or committee was formed. Now, as we are going to talk about their recommendations, what exactly this committee has recommended, what all things are they recommending at this point of time. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of recommendations, 1 or 2 facts more. Number 1, it's around 750-page document, and they have said, and let me tell you what has been told by this commission or committee, that this recommendation is in full Hindi. And they have clearly said it has no word of Urdu or any other language. Please remember when I say no single word. They are saying it is a report which is completely in the Hindi medium. Not a single word of any other language is used. Personally, if you ask me if they would have used the words of other languages also, the report should have been holistic, and if it is holistic, no problem. But then they have clarified and they have highlighted this fact that, see, we have not used any such word. So, this is something that you can keep in mind. Now, let us come to the recommendations. First thing, they say no tampering for scheduled tribes, transgender rights, religious matters, and traditions. So one thing they are saying is that we should not make any changes with regards to the scheduled tribes, their customs, transgender rights, with regards to the religious matters and traditions. Now specifically, let me tell you about the STs. They are only around 2.9% when it comes to Uttarakhand's population. But they were very, very unhappy with the fact that UCC was being implemented. So since the beginning, the tribals were unhappy about the UCC. So now, in order to make them happy, in order to tell them that, see, we have made no changes to this, this has been clearly stated. Now that's your first major point that they are saying. This is your first major thing. Second, Now you all must have heard these words, but then let me make them again clearer to you. Strict punishment is being recommended by the committee in regards to what? Triple talaq. Now you all must have studied it a lot of times. Similarly, practices like halala, etc. These practices are mainly under the Muslim community, and they are saying there should be strict punishment. So mainly they are concerned with marriage and divorce as far as the Muslim personal laws are concerned. Apart from this, they also mention the third point that they are saying is they are advising the government that please ban polygamy and polyandry. In simple words, they are saying that the practice of more than one partner, whether in case of the men or the women, should be totally banned. They have clarified that they are not trying to hurt any community, but they want that through these things, what would happen is that the rights of women would be ensured specifically with regards to marriages and property. So their point is, if you do this, the women, they would have equal rights when it comes to marriages as well as the inheritance of the properties. This is their third recommendation. Let me write one recommendation here itself. Fourth recommendation they are saying is that the live-in marriages, or rather I should say live-in relationship, not marriage, I'm sorry. They are saying these live-in relationships, they cannot be stopped but legalized. If somebody is in live-in relationship, it should be legalized. How? There should be mandatory registrations of such couples. So if you are in a live-in relationship, there should be some sort of registrations. So somewhere clearly this committee is saying that the live-in relationships cannot be stopped, but then what we can do is we should go and legalize them, register them mandatorily, and thus mitigate some of the negative aspects, if at all, are there in this sort of relationships. Another very, very important recommendations, let me write here only. This is your fourth and now fifth. Okay. Another recommendation. Fifth recommendation is minimum age of marriage for women to be 21. Now this is a big recommendation, and this, let me tell you, is something that we will have to see separately in another class. That what are the implications of raising the marriageable age of women? Should it be made 21 or not? This we'll have to look into separately. Sixth, very good point. They are saying women should have similar inheritance rights as the men have. So these are some of the recommendations as far as this committee which is concerned with implementation of UCC in Uttarakhand is concerned. If you look, personally I'll say, remember this 21 point, that is increase the marriageable age to 21. You can easily think that they are talking about similar inheritance rights for women. Please remember where all they are saying no change. You can easily understand that they are saying with regards to marriage and divorce, certain things should be strictly punished, and they are asking for ban on polyandry and polygamy. Sixth, equally important point, they also talk about the live-in relationship. So these are some of the most important recommendations of this committee. So if I go back, you can see this was the first point that we had to deal with, that what are the points under the draft as far as the Uttarakhand is concerned. Now moving ahead of this, let us move to the second part, that is under the Constituent Assembly. What all was talked with regards to UCC? Now first thing here, and you all must have heard and must have studied the point of UCC under Directive Principles of State Policy. You all know that this is mentioned under Article 44 of the Part 4 of the Constitution. Those who do not know, please go and study this topic, that the state shall endeavor to secure for the citizens UCC throughout the territory of India. Now you all know why were certain points put under the DPSP. The thing was that the constitution makers either felt that at that point of time we did not have enough resources. For example, we did not have much money. So right to education, which came in 2009, was earlier under the DPSP, that the state should give free and compulsory education to everyone, in the fact that the children should be getting free and compulsory education. Similarly, some other points were put under the UCC wherever the constitution makers felt that we do not have unanimity, or the people have not come to that maturity that they could accept it. That is why if you look at the Constituent Assembly makers, they thought that later there would be uniform set of laws which would replace the personal laws of the religion, and these are with regards to what? In the last slide we talked about marriage, divorce, adoption, inheritance. So they knew that with maturity, now India is in the 76th year, 77th now basically of the independence. The constitution makers, when they were thinking about this, they thought that right now we might not be there, but in future course of time, the people would be ready, the people would accept common laws with regards to all these 4 points. Now you all know DPSP, they are not enforceable, or they are not justifiable or justifiable in court of law. But then they are very, very fundamental when it comes to the governance of our country. The people who wrote this Constituent Assembly, they had mentioned it in the DPSP, thinking that the governments would always treat it as the cornerstone of the, I would say, policies in those days. Now, what is the story? How did this UCC land up in DPSP? Please remember, in those days there was a lot of debate on this, whether it should become a FR, fundamental right, or it should become a DPSP. As you all know, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was heading the subcommittee on fundamental rights, and in this committee, by a vote of 5:4, it was felt UCC doesn't fall under the scope of FR. It does not come under this. If you go through this article also, 2 people and 2 names have been mentioned, one pro and one against. There is a person named Naziruddin Ahmad. He was a member of the Constituent Assembly from Bengal. He in his way, he said that in those days, the civil laws of the various community, they were inseparably connected with the religious beliefs of any community. So his belief was that if we implement the UCC, basically we are going to infringe on these religious beliefs. And if this is done, your Article 25 of the Constitution, the other fundamental right which guarantees the right to freedom of religion, subject to public order, morality and health, it would be infringed. Now let me tell you one very interesting fact, that even he was not against this idea. See, please understand, even Nazaruddin Ahmad, when he opposed UCC, he said the time is not right for UCC. That is in 1940s, late 40s, when the constitution was being prepared, he felt this is not the correct time to implement this. Of course, the process has to be gradual. He said UCC should be brought gradually, and we should take the consent of the concerned minorities. Those who are getting impacted by this, their concerns should be taken. So even the person who has opposed this UCC, he also opposed it on the ground at that moment that maybe this is not the right time to do it. Now coming to the person who favors this, K. Munshi, very, very important man, a big architect of our constitution, a member of the Constituent Assembly, freedom fighter. He talks about, and he basically rejects the notion that UCC would infringe on freedom of religion. He says that implementation of UCC is not going to infringe the freedom of religion. His point is that anyways, Constitution allows the central government or even the state government to keep on doing the secular activities that are related to religious reforms if it leads to social reform. So K. Munshi was of the view that we should adopt it. Finally, the most important person who comes here, and I'll take a separate column for this. I'm writing here. Everyone, what is the view of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, the great man, on this issue? Again had a ambivalent stance. He also says that UCC is desirable, but then it should be voluntary, purely voluntary, at least in the initial stages. To some extent, you can see he believes like Nazaruddin Ahmad that it should be done gradually, it should be done with the consent of the people, the minorities or any section of the society who get affected by this. So you can see the second part of the lecture where we have talked about what was the view when it comes to the Constituent Assembly, when it comes to UCC. So you can see, let me go back to that slide again. Constituent Assembly's view when it comes to this particular topic. See, you can always use the notes that I'm preparing, and this will be acting as your notes. You do not have to do anything extra. Now, coming to the third point. Why is UCC so much of, the need of the hour, or whether it should be brought or not? The views we'll have to see. Now, if you see our other matters, when it comes to criminal or civil matters, India has got uniformity. Some of you must be knowing the acts like Criminal Procedure Code, Similarly, Civil Procedure Code, Contract Act. So many such, things have been brought, or laws have been brought, which have brought a unanimity in different cases. But then, if you see, these have also been subject to various amendments. Please understand, the state governments, they have brought many amendments to these also. So there also the uniformity has been diluted. For example, in this article, one example is being given that the center brought the Motor Vehicles Act, and later many states, they reduced the fines which were prescribed and justified by the central government. So it is Mr. Narendra Modi's government which had brought the Motor Vehicles Act, and yet in this some instances, even the BJP ruled states, they have reduced the fines, they have modified the prescribed fines, and they said this is justified, this is totally correct on their part. So in that case also, there can be changes. And if you all keep in mind that where is this personal law? It is under the entry 5 of concurrent list. So your personal laws, they are kept over there. So now think about this. We are saying that there is a plurality. I'll just write it again. Just give me a second. Eraser. There is plurality when it comes to civil or criminal laws. How can there be one nation, one law, when there are different communities? And if we talk about even the Hindus, all Hindus, they are not governed by homogeneous personal laws. Their laws are also heterogeneous. That is, even after Hindu Code Bill came, for Hindus there are differences when it comes to different rules. Similar thing for Muslims also there is. For Christians also it is there. So if you think about this, Hindus are governed by 4 different acts, because when Hindu Code Bill was being brought, there were different complexities when it comes to inheritances, succession laws. So then also the lawmakers, they brought 4 different acts. One was Hindu Marriage Act. Another one was Hindu Succession Act. Third one was Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act. And the fourth one was Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act. So for Hindus also it was separated. Similarly, there are people who give certain examples. For example, in this article it is mentioned about a constitutional law scholar named as Faizan Mustafa. Faizan Mustafa talks about Hindu marriages and says that if you look at North Indian Hindu marriages, their marriages are prohibited when it comes to close relatives. The marriages are prohibited. Whereas if you look in South India, these marriages are considered auspicious. So you can see there are differences when it comes to even this act. Similarly, under the Hindu Succession Act, it is only as recently as 2005 that what we find is that the daughters have been given the right to inherit the property of the father. But even now, the wives are still not having equal share in inheritances. So the people who are speaking in not in the favor of this. They are saying that, see, there are too many complexities. And it's not only that the complexities are with regards to Hindus. There are complexities with regards to Muslims also. For example, in Jammu and Kashmir, the Shariat law is not applicable. And the Muslims over there, they are governed by the customary law, which is at variance with the personal laws of the Muslims in the rest of the country. So if you see, the people who are saying that this is too much of, complexities are there, UCC cannot be applied wholeheartedly in the entire country. But then we have examples. For example, Goa. And Supreme Court had very much applauded that Goa has adopted the UCC. And those who have studied history must be knowing Goa got UCC thanks to the Portuguese as early as 1867. But then there also, if you will look at the nitty-gritties of the law, certain form of polygamy for Hindus have been allowed. So again, coming back to this, and the last thing, what is exactly the government and Supreme Court saying? Because by now we all understand this is a complex topic. This is a very complicated matter. It cannot be resolved with one view only. You have to take the consent of different parties. You have to understand the nitty-gritties of these laws as well as their repercussions on the people. Now, what is Supreme Court saying? In the famous Shah Bano judgment, I would rather say, which came in 1985. And I'm not getting into this, that how this divorced woman had demanded the maintenance from her former husband and what were the ruling of Supreme Court. Please look into this. There the Supreme Court had called for implementation of UCC. Similarly, Court also talked about implementation of this in the Sarla Mudgal judgment. Similarly, there are other cases also. Remember, one or two cases, that's more than sufficient. In different cases, Supreme Court has said that it should be implemented. Finally, what is the recommendation of Law Commission? See, the present government in 2016 requested the Law Commission, Law Commission. The present government in 2016 had asked the Law Commission that please determine how a code could be, universally applied in a country which might have thousands of personal laws. And later, this committee in 2018 submitted its report on reform of family law. Now, very, very interestingly, this committee said in its report that a unified nation does not necessarily need a unified or uniform, I would say, just a second, does not need a uniform law with regards to UCC. Their argument was, that this is a unified nation. Ours is a unified nation, but does not need uniformity when it comes to these laws. They added secularism should not or could not contradict the plurality that is prevalent in our country. So clearly, in one line, if you are ever asked about the recommendations of the Law Commission, they said UCC is neither necessary nor desirable at this stage. In 2018, they are talking about UCC being neither necessary nor desirable at this particular stage. So this is the thing that you can remember, that what is the government, what is the Law Commission saying. Finally, what about the government? You all know present day government led by the BJP. This has been a long-term pool promise. But then they also have clearly said, Kiren Rijiju, who was the law minister at that time, had clearly said that the government has no plans to set up a policy or a panel to implement the UCC. So they had clearly said this particular thing. So it took us almost half an hour, but we are done with the first topic, the biggest topic of the day. Very, very important for paper 2. Keep an eye. It will keep on coming in the coming days because this is a draft bill. It will go in the legislature, then it will be passed. All that is still pending. Moving to the second topic of the day. Page 6 IR. Now this is unending woes. What is happening? Sri Lankan government and Sri Lankan Navy continuously keep on arresting our fishermen. Recently also in the Park Bay, they arrested many of our fishermen. Why are our fishermen being arrested? Now it is true that the Indian fishermen, they cross into Sri Lankan waters to catch fishes. So this area which is there in the Park Bay plus the Gulf of Mannar, in these areas, our fishermen, the coastal districts fishermen, they go that side sometimes by mistake also in order to catch the fishes. And then their boats, which are very, very costly, they are seized by the Sri Lankan authorities. Most of the times, by the time these boats are returned, they are not in usable condition, and this is leading to a lot of problem. In this topic, there is a reference to Blue Revolution. Please do have an idea on this. We'll not talk about this today. It's a purely geography topic, or in economics, wherever you would have studied. We'll look into the Tamil Nadu Marine Fishing Regulation Act and what is a joint working group that's been formed on this group or on this particular topic. So if I move ahead, please understand what has happened is that our fishermen from the coastal districts of Tamil Nadu had been using these areas of Park Bay as well as Gulf of Mannar for traditional fishing. This is something that's not being done for 10 years, 20 years. It's been a very old practice. Now what happened is in 1974 and 1976, we signed certain agreements known as International Maritime Boundary Line Agreement. We signed this IMBL agreement. What did this do? This clearly demarcated, mutually agreed. Both the sides had agreed to these, and they were legally bound borders which basically divided the two countries' territorial waters. So please understand, India and Sri Lanka, we demarcated these territorial waters. Both the sides mutually agreed that this is going to be our boundary, and we both are legally bound. So new law came. Along with this, in the late 70s only, the fishermen, specifically of Tamil Nadu, they changed their method of fishing. We upgraded ourselves to the better fishing boats, I would say, the steel-hulled fishing vessels, and started to engage in bottom trawling. See, this is being done mainly by our fishermen to boost the production. But unfortunately what happened is, because of the overuse of this bottom trawling due to the continuous fishing, the amount of fishes reduced, or the fish stocks, they reduced on our side. So sometimes our fishermen, they started to move on the other side to do the fishing. Now, as you all know, in 70s and 80s, even 90s, early 2000s, because in the north there was the menace or the LTT was controlling these areas. So the Lankan fishermen, they would venture less into the sea. One of the reasons also was that they were worried about the Indian trawlers, which were much bigger compared to their smaller ships or the boats, which might have got impacted. So remember, because LTT was controlling those areas, the Sri Lankan government was restricting the use of these areas by local fishermen. And Indian trawlers, they were able to, sometimes go that side also, do the fishing. See, again, remember, these all are being done for livelihood, nothing else. Now, what has happened is, you all know, I'll take another slide, that the war stopped. And now their fishermen also started to do fishing in these areas. And thus the conflict started to take place. Now, why are we studying it today? Because what has happened is, recently, the Sri Lankan Navy detained 23 fishermen and 2 trawlers. Now, this 23 in itself is a big number. Bigger is the fact that in this year, only in 1 month and 5 days, they have arrested 69 fishermen compared to 240 fishermen who had been arrested in the whole last year. So you can imagine, last year if the average was 20, this year it has gone to almost 3.5 times of that. It's a big jump. And our fishermen, they are worried. Why they are worried? Because once they are arrested, they have to rot in their jails for years and years, months and months. Plus, these trawlers, which I mentioned, for example, the 2 trawlers, their costly fishing nets, vessels, they are seized by the Sri Lankan authorities. This year alone, 69 fishermen and 10 such vessels have been impounded. In the last 6 years, from 18 to 24, they have taken over 150 boats. See, most of the times our government intervene, they return it back. Mostly the fishermen are returned, boats are not returned. If the boats are returned, they are returned very late. By then, these boats are of no use. Now imagine, the boat's cost is usually 25 lakh to 1 crore. So the moment these boats are detained or taken over by the Sri Lankan authorities, it impacts the livelihood of these fishermen. You all can understand, they come under huge debts. So this is becoming a big issue. Sri Lankan authorities, on the other hand, their point is that the Indian fishermen, because they do this destructive bottom trawling, this is something that is hurting their livelihood too. See, Sri Lankan government is under pressure from their fishermen. Their fishermen are saying that the Indian trawlers are coming to their side. They are taking over the fishes. And Sri Lanka itself has banned it since 2017. So that's a big problem. They are saying we have banned it. You should also stop it. Now the problem on our side is we have a practical problem. What is the practical problem? The law that I said, Tamil Nadu Marine Fishing Regulation Act of 1983. Under this, they say that any fisherman, if they want to use mechanized boats, it should be used beyond 3 nautical miles from the coast. It should not be used before that. Now, as you can understand, in many areas, like if you see Dhanushkodi, the distance of Dhanushkodi from IMBL, International Maritime Boundary Line, is only 9 nautical miles. So sometimes by mistake also the breaches happen. And that's why our Prime Minister had made it very, very clear that when these breaches happen, it should be considered as humanitarian problem and it should be seen as humanitarian concern. Last, we have already in 2016, both the sides have formed a joint working committee or joint working group. We did 5 meetings of this. Both the sides have done, but the last meeting was done only in 2022. So there is an urgent need that this problem should be resolved as early as possible, because the fishermen, a lot of them, they are asking that if this problem is not resolved, if our fellow fishermen, they are not, coming back, one thing we should do is we should not participate in the coming elections, which would not be fair neither for the government nor for the other side. That's the thing that you should keep in mind. We are done with the second topic. Third, now you all can see, last week I did one topic on the solar scheme. Yesterday also I showed you how to keep on building on that. Again today, there is an article that came on the same topic. And basically in this article, they are only saying that centre's scheme is wonderful, great, but they are raising 2 concerns. One concern that they are raising is that the states are being, I would say, bypassed. States should not be bypassed under this. And their second point is that our record that we are saying what we have added in the last few years and what is our target, presently it appears to be too ambitious. Third, there are other reports which say this is still costly. This initiative would be still costly even after the fact that the central government is giving a lot of subsidy. There is absolutely no doubt central government has increased the subsidies from 40% to 60% after the announcement made by Honorable Prime Minister on 22nd January. But then people are saying still it is going to be very, very costly. So just going through this, again we have done a lot on this. See here. Announcement is by Prime Minister. And this announcement is nothing but Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya Yojana. Under this, we are promising that 1 crore households would get power through rooftop solar panels. I should mention household. That's why if you write it in small, it would be HRTS, household rooftop solar panels. Now, there are certain points under this which we had seen earlier also, that this is for those houses that consume less than 300 units of electricity per month. The great advantage of this is 1 lakh crore. The cost might be, but in the long run, it would be helpful to the people who would be applying it. I have already said, but again repeating, the subsidy has been increased to 60% from the earlier 40%. And the rest of the 40 now would be given by a private developer. It would be basically financed by a private developer who would be associated with a public sector enterprise connected to the power ministry. Now, there would be something called net metering in this. What is the net metering? That is, if you are producing additional or surplus, if I say, electricity, it can be sold back to the grid, and thus, slowly and slowly this loan could be given back. Now, the fact is 25 to 30 crore households are there in our country. That's an estimate. And almost 85% of these households, they consume less than 100 to 120 units on an average. So if the target is 1 crore households, clearly you can understand, and if you have so many households out of which 85% consume less electricity, there is no doubt that this identification will not be a big challenge, because you have a lot of households and you can easily identify them. Now, another good aspect of this plan, that this is being done by center as opposed to the state power distribution companies. Why we are saying this is good? Because the state powered distribution companies, they are making losses. In fact, they are making heavy losses. So chances were that they would not have been able to do it on a better way or in a better way. But then at the very beginning I said that this article talks and says that it is not entirely correct to bypass them. Now, why? Because these have the best, I would say, knowledge, granular knowledge or granular information about power supply at household levels. Please understand, if Rohit Kumar is staying in a village or in any place, presently the power that is coming to his house is being provided by the state power distribution companies. So they have the maximum information about me. The most granular level, the most minutest information is there with them. So if they are included in this, it will be very, very good. So that's the first concern of this article. The second concern that they are saying, look at the, I would say, the targets. Target was of 40 gigawatts, that this much would be installed when it comes to rooftop solar panels. But only 12 has been achieved. And out of these 12, only 2.7 is on household. Rest of the amount is on like commercial buildings. They are being installed on commercial buildings. So this is the second thing, that we have not met the targets that we made previously. The third is that this is still very, very costly. If you look at this installation would still be very, very costly for the people. Some reports are saying 50,000 per kilowatt. So this is some back of the envelope calculations, not the exact calculation. But then if you have to electrify 1 crore households, some people say 1.5 lakh crore would be needed. Because you can understand, 2.3 kilowatt system is sufficient to have a minimum of 300 units. If 50,000 per kilowatt, it comes out to be 1,50,000 capital cost per household. If you look at the present budget, this budget has only given 4,555 crore for this scheme for the current interim budget. But then again, it can change. It is only an interim budget. It can always change. This can go up. So please remember, we have already done this article. We are only adding few things. One, that this editorial is raising certain questions on this. One, why are you bypassing them? The second question is being raised here is that the targets which were made earlier have not been fully met. What's the view about the future targets? And the third point that another article is raising is that this is still very, very costly. If you want to write another problem, no deadline is mentioned. By when are we planning to do this? This is also not mentioned. So of course it's a great scheme. Tomorrow if comes, critically analyze this Suryodaya Yojana that has been initiated by the central government, write good points on that. Very ambitious, very good. Renewable energy will give us clean energy, would, reduce the carbon footprint. But then if we have to write certain negative aspects, do write. Where is the deadline? What about the costing? What about the previous targets that we have missed? Why is the state, apparatus not being involved in this, which will not help in the longer run, because they have the most of the information as far as these schemes are concerned. So that is something that you should definitely point out. Moving ahead. Fourth, Education, GS paper 2, and please see this article is by M. Jagdish Kumar, Chairman UGC, 12th Vice Chancellor JNU. He is talking about higher educational institutes. For example, let's say XYZ went to a university, took a degree, he is now undergraduate, again goes, takes another degree, is now a postgraduate, wants to do PhD. All these are what? These are macro credentials. These are not micro. But then many of you must be having the knowledge, like Google, LinkedIn, Microsoft, PwC, these institutes, these companies, they offer micro credentials, small courses you can study. You can do it on smaller levels. What it does, these can be added to the National Credit Framework. You could have it in the Academic Bank of Credits, and it would bring people who are ready for the, I would say workable, and I should rather say that, for example, I graduated, but I have a degree. Am I ready for working? I have sufficient knowledge or not? Sometimes it is not there. But if we get these smaller boosts to our career, we would be in a stage to contribute in a much better manner. So personally, I felt very good article on education. And the first thing that we should definitely know is, what exactly is this macro? Please understand, micro is another, macro is another. What is macro credential? As I said, very short duration. These are short duration learning activities. You can take it, or you can get it in the online format, or go and get it in the physical format, or you can have it in hybrid form. Different forms. Hybrid means online plus physical. In any form you can have this. Of course, you will have to have proof that you specifically learned something. So there has to be learning outcomes here. Those who are slightly also worried about what exactly is micro credentials. I'm sorry, macro will come this side. I'll just put, this is micro. I'll just put it. This is micro. Now, if somebody is worried about what exactly is micro credentials, as I said, the degree of undergraduate, UG degree, you studied for 4 years, then you got these macro credentials. But as I said, even after studying for 4 years, even after having the macro credentials, many a times the working professionals, they might not be ready for the professional lives. So in these situations, they can take up these micro credentials and they would be ready for that. Am I clear? So these micro credentials, when given to working professionals who have already, achieved the macro, that is a degree or something like that, it will help the working professionals for lifelong. Let me give you an example. Let's say I was doing some course. I went on LinkedIn, I studied a course, and today I studied how to make PPT, or I learned how to work on Excel. So I would definitely give an online certificate. As you can understand, these would be very, very short duration courses. So this article is saying that our educational institutions, which till now have been providing these macro credentials, our higher education institutes, they should now start providing these micro credentials also, these credentials, because this will help students get career as well as job opportunity. So please understand that the gap which exists, let's say Rohit Kumar got the undergraduate degree, but in order to get the job, there is a gap. He does not know something. That gap would be filled by what? Micro credentials. So they will be, acquired just in time to get the modern skills, to get the modern competencies. Thus, it will help us in a big manner. I've already said these micro credentials are being offered by many players like Google, Microsoft, etc. And even the modern universities, whether you go to Australian university, Canadian universities, European universities, they are asking for more and more micro credentials. Now, from this only comes the word credit. Now, you all must have studied in, or you might be studying in universities, colleges. There you would have got CGPAs, credits and all are there. Every subject has a particular credit assigned to it. So similarly, the credits which are, assigned to the lectures, I would say, or tutorials, that credit should be assigned to these micro credentials also. And this, please understand, will clearly give a clear quality benchmarking. Why I'm talking about clear quality benchmarking is because in the micro also you get the credits. But then it should not be that just on paper the people have got these credits. They should be consistent. They should be universally validated. And they should be recognized. If this is not done, remember, the gap would continue to be there. So this quality benchmarking, that becomes a top point over here. Now already the government has brought the national credit framework. What is this? Whatever you study, what are your learning outcomes? And based on this, a student gets a credit. The students can keep on accumulating these credits and they can move to the next levels. Now, because you have these credits, the big benefit of these is that these credits, they would be portable. They would be stackable. That is, you can take it to one place to another in a digital format. In which form? On a digital platform. In this article, the author mentions about a digital platform like Academic Bank of Credits. So A, B, C, on this all your credits are mentioned, and this would definitely help you. Overall, for our students, Indian students, remember, having more and more credits, better credits, quality credits, they are going to give them a lot of extra skills which they can use in futures. Remember, last point here, the new education policy that came in 2020, that also focuses on providing skilled education to the students right from the primary school to the higher levels. And with the fact that the employers are looking for more and more such people who could be hired, this becomes a very, very important issue. So that's your next article. Moving ahead. See, this article is something that you have to do on your own. For example, this is an article that came, Panchayats earn only 1% of their revenue through taxes. See, this is about the PRIs, Panchayati Raj institutions, and the fact that even after the amendments, which, the law which came almost 30 years, it came in 93 and all, even today, the Panchayats sources of revenues are limited. There are different datas are given. You can see they have talked about, let me change the pen color, chart 1, chart 2, chart 3, chart 4, chart 5. So they have given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 charts, and they have done a survey of many of the states, almost around 20 states, their survey has been done. So what I want you to remember is, do not remember the whole article, just remember few facts. For example, I have written here, the average revenue per panchayat ranges from this much in Andhra to this much, 64 lakh in West Bengal. Average expenditure per panchayat has witnessed a decline from this to this in the last 20 years, almost a big substantial decline. Similarly, states like Goa, Karnataka, Odisha, Sikkim, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they have the highest average expenditure at the panchayat level. This slide would help you write a good answer when it comes to Panchayati Raj institutions. So read this, just jot down points like this. Like I wrote, 1% of revenue of Panchayat PRIs were earned by them. Where did the rest come from? Rest came as grants from the state and the center. Out of those grants also, 80% comes from central government grants, 15% comes from the state governments. Panchayats, we all know, act at 3 levels, the Gram Sabhas, the Panchayat Samitis, as well as the Jila Parishads. Now you all know these bodies, they are responsible for variety of tasks like, let's say, agriculture, health, rural electrification, sanitation. Jila Parishad is also responsible for school, hospital, even at times minor irrigation projects. So such points you will have to take out from this article. Again, it's totally a factual article. Do not burden yourself with a lot of points, but do keep in mind certain points, 1 or 2 points. I'm not saying a lot also. Just write any 1 or 2 points which will help you in tomorrow writing about the PRIs, how effective they are, or if they are not affecting, what are the reasons of their inefficiencies. So this you will have to do on your own. Then there were 2 questions or 2 topics for your prelims. Now this Yemen strike is not that important. The only thing is, in this article it is mentioned that there are 2 cargo ships which are there in West Asia. These 2 ships are being suspected for a very long period of time that this is being used by the Iranian commandos. You all know yesterday the American authorities had attacked the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Again, these ships are in news. So these 2 are the names of ship directly not attacked this time, but it shows the bigger problems that are happening between US and the Tehran's government. Now this strikes that happened because 3 of the US soldiers, they were killed in Jordan a few days ago, and they were also, many were, I would say, hurt in this. Now, in this article, it is mentioned that Iranian authorities say that they use this Behshad as a ship for counteracting piracy in Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Now, you all know there is a lot of news about counter piracies actions being done, and specifically India has contributed a lot here, but from Iran we haven't got any such counter piracy actions. They have not been part of any such campaigns. Now this Behshad has been recently docked in Djibouti. Djibouti is in East Africa. Now, why you should remember Djibouti? Because some of you, if you study geography through maps, you must have been knowing about Horn of Africa. Countries like Somalia, Djibouti, they are part of Horn of Africa. So this is your homework. Find out, tell me in the comment section, all those who are till here with me, even after 1 hour, I'm sure you people are going to do wonderful and you are going to crack this exam. Tell me which all countries are a part of Horn of Africa. Very important article or news item or the question from the perspective of our prelims. Last, for science and tech, there is one article on page 18, Ergosphere making a black hole work. Just remember one point. What is Ergosphere? It's a bigger sphere that an object can enter and then leave. It's moving fast enough, but still less than speed of light. Not clear? Yes. So what is Ergosphere? Look at this line. The black holes which rotate, which are known as Kerr black holes, they have a unique feature. A very, very unique point, that is they have a region just outside their outer event horizon called ergosphere. Do not read this whole article. Very, very technical. If you understand, it's great. If you do not understand, I don't have any problem, because it talks about the black hole formation, how the black holes are formed and all that. From this article, we just have to remember what exactly is ergosphere for our prelims. Rest, how the black holes are formed, that you study in your regular classes in your science and tech. So this article, just remember this particular point. Last fact, last thing of the day, we had to see 2 questions. I've given you 2 more mains questions. Is Uniform Civil Code the need of the hour? What are the challenges in its implementation? Comment 150 words. Panchayati Raj institutions have many limitations which is not allowing them to achieve their full potential. Critically analyze. Another question of 250 words. With that, I'm done with the session. Thank you. Very, very important news items specifically with regards to UCC. Go through them. Some of you have written on my personal mails asking me that, can we use the notes that you are telling us? Absolutely. The notes that I'm writing, for example, if I go back to the, slides, let me go to the first one. See, for example, if you see here, background, the recommendations, similarly, what were the debates in earlier times, you can use these and this would surely help you in your exams. So let's meet again in the next session. Till then, thank you. Goodbye.